auditory integration training, or Berard Ait, was originally developed by Dr. Guy Berard and focused on auditory processing issues. But over time, it has been noted to be useful in other areas of the sensory system as well, in particular, the area of visual processing. Now, we address the question, what is the connection between Berard Ait and visual processing? This video helps show the connection between the auditory and visual systems and why auditory stimulation can benefit both systems. Visual processing is the blending of separate elements into a cohesive whole so that the final result is a complete mental concept or image that we understand. These distinct elements include color, depth, texture, and form. We perceive all of these aspects through our eyes, but then each element is immediately transmitted to our brains to be processed. In order for us to integrate and make sense of this information, we identify the different aspects of the image. We sort them and categorize them so that we can create a complete mental concept or image that we can understand. We process an image with our brain. When the ability to blend these elements into a whole does not function effectively, we have difficulty making sense of information taken in through the eyes. It's important to understand that this is not a problem with eyesight. Eyesight is the ability to focus clearly on an image, while vision is the ability of the brain to perceive this image and give it meaning. For example, eyesight is how clearly we can see a baseball, while vision is what directs the baseball player to swing the bat at the exact right moment and place in space to make contact and hit a home run. Visual processing problems affect how visual information is interpreted or processed by the brain, not how clearly the image is registered by the eyes. You can think of it as loading an image to your smartphone or computer. There's always a slight delay, and then once it's loaded, we're able to see or process and understand the image. The sensory system involves all of our senses: auditory, visual, taste, touch, and smell. Each of these senses is controlled primarily by a particular area of the brain. However, Dr. Jörg Lewald states there is increasing evidence that processing of incoming sensory information is not strictly separated in the brain. All of the senses work together to form an information network, helping us to make sense of the world around us. Many functions of the visual system have an equivalent in the auditory system, and when processing problems occur in either system, they can produce similar difficulties. For example, difficulty with figure ground or discrimination. Figure ground is one concept that applies to both auditory and visual systems. Basically, it is identifying a figure or a sound from background images or from background noise. In this example, if you focus on the color black as the figure and the color white as the ground, you will see a tree. If you focus on the color white as the figure and the color black as the background, you will see two animals. An easy way to understand this concept is to think of the figure as the important information you want to focus on as you try not to be distracted by background images. Try to focus on the bee in the flowers. Processing problems make it harder to isolate and understand the target or figure, especially in noisy environments or in visually distracting or busy environments, like looking for a friend in a crowd, or reading books, or looking for a jar of jelly in the refrigerator. Discrimination is another function of both auditory and visual systems. Discrimination is the ability to detect differences in variables, like differences in sounds, like as in pat, from
b,
as in bat, for example. P and B are not only similar sounds acoustically, but also similar letters visually, and so are easily confused. In fact, they can be easily confused with many other letters as well. Dyslexia is often thought of as a visual disorder, but researchers have suggested that there are two forms of dyslexia: the visual form, dyseidetic dyslexia, difficulty with visual memory, and the auditory form, dysphonetic dyslexia, difficulty connecting sounds to symbols. Both forms involve visual and auditory processing. Studies done by Dr. Harold Solon and Dr. H.G. Birch conclude that weaknesses in auditory or visual integration are factors in reading disabilities. Reading requires visual memory of letters, and problems in the visual processing system can make reading very difficult. Words or letters may be blurry, or they may seem to move up and down, or side to side, or they may appear to float on the page. Sometimes words may seem inversed or appear doubled, or letters can seem mixed up. We have seen children with reading difficulties begin to read with more efficiency after Berard Ait. This suggests that there may have been problems with either auditory or visual skills, or both, and Berard Ait may have stimulated reorganization and integration of the auditory-visual connections, enhancing the skills needed to become a proficient reader. In these examples, we see the parallel relationship between the auditory and visual senses. This parallel relationship seems to explain the connection between Berard auditory processing training and visual processing. One theory of how this facilitation works is the cerebellar-vestibular system theory. The CVS refers to both the cerebellar system and the vestibular system. They work together to regulate many functions. Both systems involve parts of the brain that play a role in, among many other things, hearing and vision. Again, we see the parallel between the visual and auditory systems. Dr. Harold Levinson's work has shown that a CVS that is not functioning as it should can produce an assortment of symptoms and behaviors, including problems with hearing and vision. The theory is that stimulation to the CVS helps reorganize the system when it is not working efficiently. Berard Ait is a unique method of providing stimulation to the CVS, which in turn helps reorganize the system. When the sound vibrations, which are specially modulated by the educator used in Berard Ait, trigger reorganization, it is not just reorganization within the auditory system, but rather within the CVS itself. If the CVS is reorganized and functions properly, there's potential impact on all the functions that the CVS regulates, including both vision and audition. This is consistent with Dr. Leewald's perspective that neural pathways simultaneously process information from different senses. This theory helps explain the connection between the visual and auditory system and why changes in visual processing skills may occur after Berard Ait, a program originally developed for training auditory processing. In this video, we have focused on the relationship of Berard Ait with visual processing. However, research indicates all senses also receive impact from Berard Ait.